This is Jason from English Out There, and ESL is about data, and I'm just gonna show you that. So that's data, that's how you spell data, and that says ESL. Okay, now over the years of what I've been doing and looking at stuff and working with students and audio and things like that and getting the results that we get, I'm interested in how we get information into people's heads, how they process it, and then how they speak using it. And in January this year I saw an article in The Guardian that made me think, and here are some quotes from it. Here we go. Right, mind reading program translates brain activity into words. Scientists have picked up fragments of people's thoughts by decoding the brain activity caused by words that they hear. And that was from The Guardian. And this was talking about some research that some scientists had done recently. I think in 2012 they published it, and it was about taking words that people spoke and decoding them and working with people's brains and forming new language. So, you know, if you think about it, here's a picture of someone sitting at a desk listening to some stuff, and then using a computer to convert the analog waves of the sound that they speak into a digital format, which is these numbers. Okay, and that's digital. And then when it's converted digitally, then it comes down, it goes through from here into the computer, and then it, like if you're using Skype, it travels down the internet, through the internet, and then there are programs that can work out what these numbers mean, the digital numbers, and then reconstitute them back as words. So this guy here can say stuff, and then it can go through a computer, down a phone line, into another computer which reads it on the page as stuff. So what I'm basically saying is that when we speak, we are pushing out data, and our brains receive data like a computer and make sense of it. So I then went to look at the this research by Pasley, David, Mesgarani, Flinker, Shamma, called Reconstructing Speech from Human Auditory Cortex. And they were basically taking the top off people's heads and putting sensors on their heads and looking for how they could reconstruct speech from the brain waves in your brain. And so they were letting people listen to stuff and then trying to formulate the language just purely from the brain waves they were getting from electrodes they had in people's heads, because they'd taken the tops of their heads off. And what they came up with, some interesting statements which I think are very relevant to how we learn language and how we can learn to speak English better. And it says they say spoken language is a uniquely human trait. The human brain has evolved computational mechanisms that decode highly variable acoustic inputs into meaningful I've underlined because that's very, very important, meaningful elements of language such as phonemes and words. And then underneath it says the results of this experiment suggest it may be possible to read out intended speech directly from brain activity. So the reason I'm showing you all of this is to say, look, when we're learning English, when we're trying to speak a language as a second language, or we're trying to learn to speak English, we're just using data, and data is like, is an amazing thing, and everyone's selling data and mining data, and Google is about data, Facebook is about data, everything is about data these days. These numbers, 00110001. And then that took me back to Krashen, 1982, and in a conversation with him, then looking at this again, how do you improve your speaking skills? And Krashen has said that this thing here, ESL, this is my words, ESL is about data, okay, and the data is in here. So what you've got is input, okay, and then language acquisition, and then output. So when you speak, and it comes down here, conversation, that goes back to input. So it's basically when you have a conversation with someone, if it's at the right level and you can understand most of it, and it continues at the right level, you get what I call, a virtuous circle or cycle of input, which is data, into your ear, into your brain. You understand, you compute, and slowly and surely you start recognizing the patterns of language that are attached to meaning, okay? And then meaning, and the personal meaning it gives to you, and the context in which you listen to it and understand it, makes it memorable for you, okay? And I was thinking, this is something that's interesting, and working with students that I work with, where we get them into conversations and record them, and then get them to listen to them again using their iPods or on their computer. I thought, is there any research that has done this? And then there's this research that I found called Improving Second Language Speaking Proficiency via Interactional Feedback. And interactional feedback is basically what our friend Professor Krashen put here, that data in the middle of that virtuous circle of conversation. And so interactional feedback, so can you feed data into someone's brain via a recording device or a playback device that makes it much more likely that they will improve their speaking skills, okay? And from the abstract of this very important research, they say statistically significant differences were found, that means good, positive differences, were found in pronunciation, linguistic structure, and content from the first to last observations. So they tested it like we do with EOT, with before and after recordings of and assessments of students at the start and at the end, and it was significant. Findings suggest serious implications for improving speaking proficiency. So data is where it's at. ESL is all about data. Okay, thank you for watching. Sorry I've gone on for too long, but I'll speak to you next time. Bye bye.